Simon, so good to have you on the Goodman Lantern podcast. Thank you so much for your time today. It's kind of funny because it kind of shows me where our journey begins in life. We obviously met in as part of EO London, that member in EO Accelerator, EOA, and we have both now sort of run our journeys. We are on our own paths over here. Last time we met, we were actually in Cape Town, which I believe is where you are right now, or you spend some time there at the moment. So, so that's awesome, and a big congratulations on being a father.
Thank you.
Such a great experience. I'm sure you relishing it already, and the sleepless nights, which are part and parcel of it. But Simon, I would love you to introduce yourself properly. Tell us who you are, what you do, and let's get into it.
Sure, absolutely. So first of all, thanks for having me on your show, and very excited about talking about the things that we're going to be talking about today. As to my person, quick intro, I am Simon Chapuzot. I noticed you tried to avoid pronouncing my last name, which is a bit complicated because it's French. Took me years to learn that, but I'm not French. I'm originally from Germany. We lived in London. That's where we met. Now I'm in Cape Town. And my background really is in film. I'm a Hollywood-trained script analyst. So I've learned to analyze movie scripts and to assess the economic potential of a script. And the tools that I've learned as part of the training have come back to me time and again, but particularly over the last couple of years as we dove deeper into LinkedIn and marketing for agencies, high price points, long sales cycle products and services. And in between my early training as a script analyst in Hollywood, I've had a couple of businesses myself. I ran an event space in Berlin. I ran a print magazine, and I launched a couple of conferences. So you can already see all of them are around people and content. And that all culminated in what I'm doing today, which is developing LinkedIn marketing strategies, AI-based for high price point, long sales cycle, complex products and services.
I'm really impressed, Simon. I've known you for so many years now. I had no idea you were a Hollywood script analyst. I mean, that's
Sounds very
something
glamorous, doesn't it?
it is glamorous. I mean, how many people do you know who do that as their, did that ever in their lifetimes? That's really impressive. Just out of curiosity, did you ever sort of like, is any movie which I might know which you analyzed, for example, or you part of?
Yeah, the truth to be told, there are. I'm being asked this question time and again, and I have to go back to the folder where I have all my reports filed because I honestly forgot about all the films. But the way, so to illustrate what I did, I was being sent movie scripts that were in production and were being considered by license buyers whether they should buy this. So I would read these movie scripts that were in the process of being shot in Hollywood, and I would need to tell in the eyes of a European audience, is that something that we want to be part of? And so I've read a lot of Hollywood movies, but it's you always have to keep in mind that for every movie that we know, there are about 100 movies that nobody's ever heard of. So maybe 1 in 100 is a movie that you would recognize because there's so much being produced that nobody ever sees because it's not really good.
Understood. That's really fascinating. So fast forward, obviously, I know you do a lot of great work within content, and so would it be fair to say that Hollywood has been replaced with LinkedIn, and the actors or the scripts have been, replaced with CEOs? And if so, how are you seeing this whole journey of LinkedIn and CEOs? Because obviously you analyze scripts, and so you understand the market really well. You understand, what people will want to have, what you don't want to have, and using your skills for B2B, for example. Tell me the landscape of firstly, how did you move from scripts to B2B firstly, and then we talk a little bit about your experience within LinkedIn. and then we can jump right into other questions as well.
I love the question, because it was always when I was in Hollywood or when I was in the film industry reading movie scripts, like once in a while I would get a script that sort of really sort of gripped you and was really sort of captivating, emotionally interesting, and sort of like fascinating. And I was always wondering, why is it that certain scripts are just sort of like really captivating and like sort of like inspiring to read and to watch as a movie? And then you have like all these movies that sort of just fall flat, and you struggle to sort of put the finger on what's wrong, what's different here. And so the whole art of what I was trained, or what script analysis is to sort of try to put the finger into why this doesn't work. And the one thing that always fascinated me was to see movies like Aaron Brockovich, which is sort of one of my favorite examples, that are so strong because you have characters that stand for something and that are against something else. And what it is at its core is that there are values in play. And we as humans are designed to identify or to resonate with values, or sort of be sort of like appalled by other values, which sort of is a compass for our world. And so whenever I would see a good movie, you would have a character that clearly stood for something, did this consistently, maybe had some struggles about it, inner, outer struggles, and then in the end was able to live up to these values and fulfill the mission vision of these values. And so fast forward now 25 years later to LinkedIn and writing, copywriting, we see the same with good content. If content and content for CEOs on LinkedIn, if that works well, it is because somebody is taking a clear stance on something, and it's very clear what they stand for and what they are against. And that is the foundation that you need to have for a good movie script, and that you need to have to have in a good LinkedIn post, or in a good LinkedIn profile, or in a good brand for a CEO. If it's not clear what a CEO stands for, he becomes like replaceable and is not very interesting. And I think we can see this with CEOs like Richard Branson, who's very charismatic. We call it charismatic, but it's very clear he stands for having fun, having a great community, having engaged employees, and sort of making the customer king. These are values, and what he's not standing for is, or what he doesn't stand for, is corporate speak, gray suits, and boring. And we understand this, and some people may like it, others don't. But that's a strong brand because he stands for something.
Understood, and makes a lot of sense. So obviously these CEOs are busy people. That they, obviously to resume looks like he's always on his island, but probably he's a busy guy as well. And how do you split your time between these different things, like actually doing deals versus like writing LinkedIn content? So in your experience, are CEOs going to write their own content, or do you require help, for example? What's your experience, and if so, give some insights into that, if that's all right, Simon.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. And I think it always depends on the CEO. And it depends on whether you like writing, whether you have the bandwidth to do this. So we see CEOs that actually like that appreciate the journey of sort of gaining clarity about an idea and putting that into words that then becomes a piece of content. And then there are CEOs who don't like that, or CEOs who do not have the time, though they would like to do it. And depending on like where I stand as a CEO, I have to make a decision. Okay, am I willing to write myself? And if I don't have that willingness, that's then where people, I guess, like you and I come in, where we help them, give them a voice. And then the goal is to make that as authentically as possible. But what we do is always first understand, what does the CEO want? Do they have the capacity to write themselves? Do they have the willingness? And that then could be that we either just come in as a coach from the outside and sort of explain them how to write, particularly for LinkedIn, because I mean, there's a base principles of storytelling that we just touched on with the values. And then there's sort of like details, algorithm details that work on LinkedIn, like how you open a post, that help to further post on LinkedIn. And that is where we then can help with coaching, explaining how you do it. And if they don't want to do any writing or any content themselves, then we sort of take over the whole process, and then we have to sort of get into the brain of the CEO and ideally understand what they stand for, what they're against, the value world of theirs, and then try to pour that into content that is representative for the CEO.
Understood. Now, before I go a little deeper into, LinkedIn and for content, and, writing in the CEO's mindset or tone, I have a question which is regarding, is LinkedIn the right platform for all CEOs, or is it right for just some CEOs? How do you go about analyzing which CEOs this is right or wrong, or is it right for every CEO?
Well, I think it depends on the market you're in and the objectives that you have. And clearly, there are certain industries that are very present on LinkedIn and other industries that are not very present. And then, as I said, the objectives. And let's take an example. If you are like in the, I don't know, if you run a cleaning company, that could be a good place for a CEO if the target market for the CEO are people that are present on LinkedIn. So let's say I do cleaning, office cleaning, and my buyers are tech companies who are sort of very active on LinkedIn, then that is a good match. If I'm trying to target, I don't know, schools, government institutions, probably not that good because these people are generally not that present. So that is one dimension we looked at. And then the other is the expectation that they have. Is it that they just want to be more present, to use a platform to put out more social media content, or is it really that they want to drive sales by having very concrete offers that are present on the profile? And depending on that, I think it's easier to make an assessment and then say, okay, you could really go into LinkedIn big time and get a clear ROI, or it's more like it's good to have a presence, but don't expect to see a clear ROI, and that might be okay because they just want to be more visible.
Understood. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for sharing that, Simon. So, let's go back into the sort of the journey of the CEO and LinkedIn. And I just have a question. For example, one fine day, Simon, you're sitting by your phone and you get a call from Bob. Ring, ring. Hey, Simon, my name is Bob. I'm a CEO of this company. We're a B2B brand. We love LinkedIn. And this person Bob is like a bit of a eccentric character, right? He's just unusual character. How do you go about understanding Bob? How do you go about understanding how to be like Bob on LinkedIn? How do you be the authentic, eccentric Bob, for example?
Well, I think one thing is always like, how willing is Bob to be himself on LinkedIn? And let's say he's very, very willing to be himself. And if he's sort of like a funny character, he's okay with sort of being a bit of a funny character on LinkedIn, then that's a big help. Because if you're sort of like, if you feel uncomfortable being yourself on LinkedIn because you want to conform with certain ideas or norms of what people do and don't do, then it's hard. So let's say he's happy with that. So one thing we do is we do a 1 hour call where we, like an EO, we sort of like walk the lifeline of who are you, what have you done, what brought you to where you are. And we have sort of like interview questions that we ask but there are more triggers to get them to talk about sort of what they believe in, what they treasure. And these things are then the nuggets of gold that we try to identify to understand what is the story, and what are the things that he stands for, and what are the things that he is opposed to. And with that, then we can draw a mental map. And nowadays you have fantastic AI tools with ChatGPT, where we basically can take the whole interview transcript, feed it to ChatGPT, and ask for, like, okay, look for what are the values of this person, what are they for, opposed, and you get a pretty good representation of that person. And then we have an idea of who he is, and we can then pick stories that he sort of touched on and sort of build them out into posts. And we can also train ChatGPT to work with the tonality of that CEO. So we use the words as like, give us a mental map of like, what are the words of this person, and sort of like design a prompt that we can use to then recreate that language. And a fun thing to do then sometimes is, I've just tried that, is to look for comedians. Actually, we should try this. I tried this the other day. I told ChatGPT to write something like in the style of Trevor Noah, and then sort of I ran through a list of like 10 different comedians, and I asked it to rewrite a situation from the point of view of this comedian, and sort of get different kinds of fun stories. And I could actually imagine that would be a fun thing to ask the CEO, who are your favorite comedians? What sort of kind of fun you like? And then take that and infuse the analysis of the output that we could create with ChatGPT with this comedian. So you get the transcript from Bob, you have his tonality, you have his story, you write it, and then you ask ChatGPT now sort of tune this story in the style of Trevor Noah to make it more funny. And you could have a sort of nice synthesis between Trevor Noah and the CEO's own fun way of being.
I love that. I love the idea of like fusing. It's like, like Japanese fusion sushi, and you're gonna a fusion of like the CEO and something which is maybe potentially their style, maybe not their style, but having a fusion there. And so in that, I have this kind of interesting question where, say for example, Simon, you go to a coffee shop, you go to your favorite coffee shop in Cape Town, and you over there you meet Tracy, and Tracy says, hey, I've just hired this really, really amazing coach for my LinkedIn, and I really want to make sure that this coach is doing a great job for me. How does Tracy, or what would you tell Tracy in the advice of how does she go and rank or score the LinkedIn coach? Is there a way they can do it? Is there some sort of numbers or metrics they can use to really analyze how well they're performing on their LinkedIn?
Well, that's a good question. I've never thought about that. But I mean, ultimately, yeah, it's all about do posts written by that ghostwriter get traction? And I think that's the ultimate test. And there's a caveat here. If I'm writing for a small audience, my favorite example is always insurance tech specializing on outsourcing with Ukrainian tech people. Probably your target market is very small, and so don't expect to get like 1,000 likes on your post, because in this case you're maybe targeting 100 people in the whole of Europe. So in that case, then I have to look on LinkedIn. Okay, my post only got 5 likes, but if these 5 likes are from people in this relevant industry, then everything is great. And so I think that is what we always have to keep in mind. And I was listening to a podcast the other week with one of the LinkedIn guys who sort of thinks about the algorithm. And he said something really interesting, because he said, we are not big fans of viral posts. We don't try to sort of like suppress them, but we don't think they're helpful. We think we think about being helpful in the sense of like, did this post generate business or opportunities for the author of the post? And she said, like, we didn't care about a post that gets 1,000 likes. If another post only gets 5 likes, but gets you on a call with somebody that is relevant to you. And that ultimately, I think, is that what somebody should evaluate when they work with a ghostwriter is, does get this me any kind of traction? Do I speak to people that are interesting and relevant to me? And if not, then obviously it's wasted money.
Interesting. So I'm gonna not mention the person's name, but there's somebody within EO who joined one of the EO chapters who I spoke to many months back, and suddenly it is the one hint is it's definitely a he, and so this person became like a superstar on LinkedIn. You can see thousands of likes and stuff on every post this person did. Now, I don't know if it's gamified or not, for example, but one thing it did for me was to suddenly think of this person like, oh wow, what an amazing superstar this person is. I look at the post and I'm like, they're little very ordinary, but it gets a lot of engagement on that. Almost sort of gamifying their brand, their image on LinkedIn. Now, that's what I observed on that. But now what you're saying is that actually even 5 likes are enough. Question for you, Simon, in your experience working in LinkedIn with CEOs, is there a value of almost gamifying this and really getting those 1,000 likes, for example, proposed? Or is that stardom, that sort of the LinkedIn stardom, the Hollywood stardom on LinkedIn, really not required as such for people because that doesn't really mean anything?
Yeah, I mean, it's really a complex topic, and now that you spoke about this person, I have a person in mind. And one thing that sort of comes to mind is there are ways to gamify, like game the system with LinkedIn. I mean, we know all about pods that get you hundreds of likes, and you usually can pick up on these, and I'm sure you know this. If sort of the comments that you get in conjunction with the likes are very few and sort of rather sparse, like great post, love it, thanks for sharing, and often like awkwardly mismatching because it's sort of not something where you would say, hey, great for sharing because it's, or like a great post because it's something that is really great. So there are ways of gaming the likes. Interestingly enough, what we see, even if you use one of these tools, it doesn't get you reach, and it probably gets you credibility or status with the people that do see you, but it doesn't really help you because LinkedIn algorithm has gotten really smart, so it understands the intention of a post, the tonality, and it can understand who should be seeing this post. And if it doesn't get that because the post is not really clear or isn't really written for a specific audience, it can't do its job, and it will not show this post to the people that you wanted to see. And so then even if you get 100 or 1,000 likes on a post, but if the post is wrong and you only get 1,000 impressions, your target audience doesn't see it. So it's sort of like a bit futile and sort of like a vanity measure. And so it's definitely changed over the past years or months, shall I say, that this pod thing kind of worked. But in the light of day, if we think about it, what we want is we want to connect with people and be seen by people that are relevant and can sort of cooperate. And if we don't achieve that, no pod will help us, no like will bring us closer to this goal. So it's sort of like, may look good on the outside, but it's not really worth the money that they have to invest.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I think at the end of the day, it's about making the money, isn't it? So, Jerry Maguire, they talk about show me the money, and that's what makes all of this worthwhile. So yeah, completely understand. Makes a lot of
Mm.
sense. One thing you touched upon in your previous comment was about AI and how AI is helping. Uh,
Mm.
because we work a lot in the SEO space, we still stay well clear. I mean, we use AI for our research work, but when it comes to the actual production, we still do human
Mm.
created content. What's your take on AI powered content for LinkedIn? Is it a good
Mm.
thing? Should it be used? Is there some challenges there? Any future
Mm.
challenges there potentially? Your take, please, Simon.
Well, we have to talk about SEO. I pick up questions after the show.
Sure.
But yes, I mean, it's been a journey with the AI writing and AI writing tools. And so, long story short, is if you don't know who you're writing for and what the intention of your writing is, AI can't help you. And I think in 90 to 95% of the cases of marketing writing, that is the big question. Who are we actually doing this for? What is the strategy? How is it supposed to work? And AI can't help us with that question. Maybe sort of like, no, not really. So AI is a phenomenal tool if you know what you want, because you can prompt it. You can direct it to get you what you want. But in order to get there, you have to know what you want. And if you don't know that, then it can help you. And so I have great fun designing prompts that get me Trevor Noah style post for a CEO. And the CEO has a clear message and knows exactly what he wants to put forward, then that's great. But if that is not clear, AI can help. And I think the big future with AI is to learn how to play it like a musical instrument, so that you know what changes your prompts will get if you change single words within that prompt. So it's really understanding how you can sort of manipulate details of a prompt to get a vastly different output that then sort of like becomes closer to the vision that you have. And it's actually the same with music. I used to play guitar, and you have an idea of like what you want to hear. You have a melody, you have a sound, and then you try to get close to that sound by hitting the string in a certain way, or sort of like having certain notes or whatnot. And it's the same with writing. If we don't have this idea of what we want to read or hear or what the end result is, we cannot play the AI tool like a guitar, because it's just gonna make noise. And it might look great on paper because it's a full page filled with the great sounding words, but it's not going to work because there's no vision behind that. So that's my take on AI.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. Thank you for sharing that, Simon. So I hear about knowing what you want from AI. In your experience, Simon, when you get say you do a prompt, you get something out from AI. Typically, is that something you just use then? Say you build the prompt one time, it worked very well. You use that again for the second LinkedIn post. Typically, you just use that post the way it is, or do you read it again and say, well, the first time I did the user prompt, it did a great job. This time the prompt didn't do a great job.
Mm,
Maybe I should change the prompt itself. Or do you then edit the not the prompt, but actually the content uh, around? What's your process of using the
mm,
AI content generation, which you have
mm,
using ChatGPT or Llama or whatever it might be that you're using to
mm.
kind of create content for AI?
Yeah, I mean, let's start with one thing. ChatGPT or AI writing tools are great, have the biggest strengths in ideation, brainstorming, because what is easy to miss as humans is how limited our view of things are. We know the things we know. We know there are a few things that we don't know, but we don't know what we don't know. And
Mm.
AI is a phenomenal tool to broaden our scope, to broaden our horizon, to see the things that we are not aware of. And so it's suddenly a 10x of like what we can write about, or how we can write about things. Just talking about customer research, or ICP, ideal client persona research. We are sort of like always biased to see the personas that we know, because we know them, and we don't know the personas we don't know. So it's hard for us to write about them. Yes, we can do research, but I mean, let's be honest. How many do invest the resources needed to do thorough research into the things that we don't know? It's time consuming, and it's the gold standard, but nobody does it, or few people. And so AI is amazing for ideation because it helps us to see more, get a bigger picture, and come up with ideas that we probably wouldn't have thought about. And to your question with the writing, I think it sucks at writing. It's okay if we are really clear with what we want, but it's sort of like the writing that we would have done in the original post in the old days is sort of like moved to writing of the prompt. So we invest a lot of time in writing the prompts. And then even with the best written prompts, I always rewrite posts because I still have like a different idea and sort of like a different thing. But it's a very iterative and organic process because I have sort of a couple of mini prompts that I use just to write certain segments. So I have my own prompt to write hook lines, which I've trained on great hook lines. So if I want a hook line, I can feed it the post, and then it gives me examples, sample ideas, suggestions for that post based on the prompts that I've used in the past. So I have a number of prompts that I use only for very specific elements of a writing piece. And that then leads me to the other thing. These tools work great if we have a standardized working process. So if we have a CEO and the CEO has basically 3 types of content that he does, or the 3 characteristic writing styles, then we can build a series of that because we have this, I don't know, opinion piece that he always does, and he does it for certain things. Then it's easier to sort of get decently written posts because the more similar the training material is, the easier it is to replicate that and tweak it. But for that, you need to define for the CEO, hey, Bob, here are the 3 pieces that we're doing for you going forward, and then sort of like really train the system of these pieces, and then you can write that to very high degree of quality, but there's always manual work involved. And there was a lot of manual work involved in getting the system to the point to do that.
Understood. Understood. And obviously, that brings me to the point of the future, of, you know, Simon Chapuzar, who's actually been a Hollywood script writer, analyst, for example, now looking at LinkedIn and helping CEOs. Where do you see with this AI? Where will be your role in the future? In 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, with AI coming in, ChatGPT 5, 7, who knows where it goes next? Where do you see your role growing, helping CEOs? Where do you see the CEOs dependent on AI? So yeah, I mean, if you were to just have this kind of dial and you just go 10 years from now, what would you be doing, Simon? Let's have a sneak peek in your perspective, as it were.
Well, the other day I received a call from a fellow EO member that you also know, and he was like, I'm done, I'm fucked, I can't take it anymore. And he was like completely stressed out because he thought he had figured out the processes in his business model, and then along comes AI and he has to reinvent everything from scratch. And I can feel the pain, and it's sort of like exhausting because you feel like every day you think you got it, and then sort of like something changes and you have to adapt the whole game. So that is a bit stressful. Having said that, also I shy away from making any predictions because I think I suck at making predictions about the future, and probably it's gotten worse now with AI and more technology. So and the third thing that I want to bring is Jeff Bezos at one point said, I think it was an interview, and it was being asked, Jeff, tell us about, I think similar question, like, what is going to change? Where are we going to be in like 5, 10 years? What is the market? And Jeff was like, well, why don't we talk about the things that don't change? And the things that don't change are customers want great service, great quality, and the lowest prices as fast as possible. And that is what will not change. So these are things that we can focus on. And let's try and meet these expectations and work towards that, because that is something we can plan with. We cannot plan with the future technology. And I'm trying to do the same with my work and thinking about what the impact that we have. The thing that will not change in content creation is that people will resonate with stories that they can identify with because they have clear values and they are well written and they are original. The way how we generate these pieces of content changes drastically, and I could see a future at one point where AI understands a person and sees the whole marketplace and can see, okay, there's a gap because nobody else has that kind of tonality or positioning or these values or whatnot, and can say, hey, Bob, why don't you take that niche because that is sort of like a niche that is a good match for you and it has huge economic opportunity if you do that. I can imagine that we get to that point at one point, but I'm sure there are new things that we can then do to help Bob do his thing. But yeah, it's really hard to make any predictions. And I think the prediction that I can make is that we have to keep learning all the time to stay abreast of the changes that are happening. And I think it's exciting. I love learning. It's fascinating. And if we can help other people understand what's going on and maybe be less intimidated about change by understanding what's happening, then that's a great thing we can do.
That probably is the best answer I've ever heard from anyone in regards to the prediction for the future. So well done, Simon. Absolutely smashed it with that one.
Thank you.
So, well, we're coming towards the end of the show, and there's this one thing, a thread which kind of sews it all together, which is EO, which stands for Entrepreneurs Organization. Obviously, I met you through EO. We keep meeting and bumping each other through EO. You know, it is a thread that binds us together. So I'd love to know, how has EO impacted your life? What has changes it brought into your life? Obviously, negative, positives. Hopefully more positive than negatives. But yeah, tell us, Simon, how has it impacted your life, and what can you do for others, for example?
Well, I mean, I was shocked to find out and realize the other day that I've been a member of this organization now for 10 years. And I joined it I joined it, never been that long a member, but I joined it in 2013 when I was still naive, and maybe I'm still naive, but I was more naive back then. And I took on a business opportunity that I thought I couldn't pass on. And I ended up choking on that opportunity because it was too big and too complex and too expensive and almost killed me economically and drove me into bankruptcy almost. But what happened was that at the time I had some money and I brought in some team members and elevated them to become co-shareholders. And I realized that they sort of continued with the mindset of an entrepreneur, mindset of an employee, but sort of didn't step up to the responsibility of a business owner. And that was when I realized that there's not really anybody I can talk to, because there are like some things that you don't want to talk about with your co-founders because it's sort of like too close to yourself or strategic ideas or whatnot. And that is when I discovered EO, and I thought, well, that's a great place to speak with like-minded people. And I think what then happened over the next couple of years, months or years, was that I came to understand what it means to be an entrepreneur, because I never thought about me as being an entrepreneur. I just like did things. I had like an idea and hey, let's do this thing. It's going to be great. People are going to love it. And I just did it. But I never thought like, and I feel like nowadays it's almost like all these people say, I want to be an entrepreneur. Now let's think about what I can do. And I think back in the old days, or maybe true entrepreneurs, it's more like, I want to do something, let's do it. And then suddenly, next thing you know is, oh, actually, I'm an entrepreneur. That was sort of the situation for me that I came to realize, oh, actually, in EO, there are all these people that are sort of like me in the sense that crazy to do things because they believe they're going to work somehow, and they're called entrepreneurs. And so that was, I think, a life shaping, identity shaping event for me because I came to realize I'm this kind of person. Doesn't mean it's better or worse than other people. It's just like, okay, that's sort of like a trait that that is unique for a certain group of people. And then sort of like I found my tribe, as you say, in EO, and I realized, okay, everybody that I meet in EO is open-minded, and that takes us back to values and clarity. I was just reading up the 5 values of EO. One of them is thirst for learning, boldly go, what you have to do as an entrepreneur, and 3 others that I've already forgotten. But really, the boldly go and the thirst for learning are values that I identify with, and everybody that I meet in EO has this openness, has the willingness, and has a thirst to learn from others, which I've never encountered in any other organization to that degree. And that has shaped me, shaped my life, and I think made me to a large degree, made me the person that I am today, to a large degree.
It's a great answer, and I completely agree with you on the idea of this tribe thing, and I think I have a similar mindset where we are problem solvers, and they've given us the name entrepreneur, but actually, it doesn't mean a lot. I didn't join, I didn't start a business to start a business. I started a business to solve a problem. I completely agree with you on that. And Simon, I can't thank you enough for your time today. You've been an awesome guest, such great insights into a variety of topics, right? From LinkedIn, CEO, AI, ghostwriting, and I mean, I just realized that, that you are somebody who was in part of the Hollywood industry before, which I had no idea about. And obviously, the surname Chapuzot and that the French bazaars it has kind of goes so well with Hollywood. I think it's a great fit. So glad
I should have stayed there and made my career in Hollywood with the French guy, the fake French guy.
Yeah, that's it. Well, you bring that French charm to LinkedIn and for CEOs. I think that's awesome. I think we all need that. So thank you, Simon, for your time
Thank
today.
you, Raj. It was a pleasure
Appreciate
being
it.
here.
And all the best being your father. I'm sure you'll really love that journey, and I've really enjoyed it. So, yeah, all the best with that as well. Take care of yourself.
Thank you, Raj.